God exists in the same way Santa Claus exists. We wanted Santa Claus to exist because he brings joy and happiness and, let's not forget, presents. So we made him up.
I'm not convinced about comparing God with Santa Claus, ladies and gentlemen, because have you ever met an adult that came to believe in Santa Claus?
If God is real, why does he stay hidden? It's a question that has shaken faith, fueled debates, and left millions searching for answers. When an atheist professor boldly challenged Christianity with this very question, he expected to corner his opponent. But standing across from him was John Lennox, a world-renowned mathematician known for his calm wisdom and powerful reasoning. What happened next left the audience completely captivated. As the tension rose, one question led to another, and the conversation took a turn few expected. Did the professor finally expose a weakness in faith, or was there something deeper at work? Watch until the end, share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know where you stand on this fascinating question.
It is very simple for God to prove that he exists. If, on a sunny afternoon, God shapes the clouds in the sky to read the message, tomorrow at noon, Greenwich Mean Time, I, God, will turn the Eiffel Tower upside down. And the next day that actually happens, I am converted. According to the Old Testament, God has awesome power, so it should be child's play to perform this small miracle and make me and everyone else on the planet believe in God. So clearly, God does not want to convert all the unbelievers in this simple and effective way. Why not? Apparently, God wants you to believe in him without scientific proof. This is called faith, and it deliberately leaves you in a perpetual state of uncertainty. You will despair, doubt, and maybe even hate God when a devastating earthquake destroys your hometown, killing 10,000 people. But you will praise and love him again when 10 days later, an old woman is found alive underneath the rubble. Here's the thing. God only exists because people want him to exist. And as long as that makes people happy and they do not harass non-believers, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having an imaginary friend. God exists in the same way Santa Claus exists. We wanted Santa Claus to exist because he brings joy and happiness and, let's not forget, presents. So we made him up. Throughout history, people all over the world wanted to believe that God existed, and so they made him up, because it's a comforting thought that all things happen for a reason, and there is someone out there who loves you and takes care of you. In conclusion, it is impossible to prove that God does not exist, just like it's impossible to prove that there are no green pigs, fairies, or smurfs. People who believe in God should be grateful for that. Think about it this way. If you honestly believe that there is a God, and tomorrow some brilliant scientist proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that God does not exist, would you stop believing in God just because he is not real?
Professor Lennox, may I ask you to answer that question if you
Of course you may. I'm not convinced about comparing God with Santa Claus, ladies and gentlemen, because have you ever met an adult that came to believe in Santa Claus? And I think this is actually very important. The Freudian argument is brilliant and it works, provided there is no God. He's a wish fulfillment. And Germany's top psychiatrist, Manfred Lutz, has just written a book to make this point. If God does not exist, the argument that God is a wish fulfillment is brilliant, But if God does exist, the very same argument proves that atheism is wish fulfillment. The desire never to have to meet God, never to have to do with God, and so on. So Manfred Lutz's bottom line as a psychiatrist is, on the substantive question whether God exists or not, Freud, Jung, or Frankl can't help you. But I think what can help you, to come to your question, I was a bit puzzled when Peter here, and we've been getting on like a house on fire in the interval, said that God hides himself. That's only to a certain extent true. I mean, one of the central points I made, ladies and gentlemen, was my major reason for believing in God is that he hasn't hidden himself. He's revealed himself in space, time, and history in Jesus Christ. And it's that specificity of the incarnation, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus and their documentation that for me is by far and away the biggest evidence that God does exist. What has often always impressed me about Christianity is this, that God doesn't force his way into our thinking. If he turned the Eiffel Tower upside down, I'd love to read the books by atheists the next day explaining how it happened. And that's not going to convince anybody. When God came into the world, he came in such a way that did not threaten people. They weren't wiped out by a colossal display of power. God came into the world almost incognito so that people could get to know him and get to see how he cared. And so, because the big thing at stake, to my mind, is human love and trust. And you don't win that by a display of magic tricks or power. You win it by what I believe happened during the incarnation. So I don't think God has hidden himself. No. But he hasn't made himself so obvious that you have to bow down whether you believe it or not. Mm-hmm. Because you cannot get people to accept a truth on the basis of force. So you have to do it another way. And the central message of Christianity is, after all, that God loved the world, not that he was going to impose something by force. I come from a nation, Northern Ireland, which is reputed for religious violence. I still believe in God. I live in a world which is full of suffering. I don't know how many 100,000 infants have died needlessly since we started our evening. And I can sympathize greatly with many of my colleagues who become atheists because of that. I have many friends who lost all their family in the Holocaust. I've stood and wept in Auschwitz many times. And this is a problem I face all the time, and it's the number one problem, and it's the most difficult problem. So give me a couple of moments just to say, we need a whole evening on this. But let me say one or two things. Firstly, I say that atheism claims to solve the problem by saying, that's just how life is. Dawkins says this universe is just as you'd expect it to be. If at bottom there's no good, no evil, and no justice. But you see, that strikes me as a non-solution because it doesn't remove the suffering. It's still there. What it does remove is any hope. Now you might say, as Dawkins did to me directly, that's it, it's bleak. That doesn't prove it's false. I said, Richard, that doesn't prove it's true either. We need to go deeper than that. Now, one of the reasons, ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest bits of evidence for my Christian faith has to do with this problem, because we face it all the time. I, as a human being, discover I'm a moral being. I discover a desire for justice. Is that ultimately an illusion? Because if there is no God, and in particular if there's no life after death, it is an illusion. The vast majority of people who have ever lived will never get justice, they'll never get relief, they will never have any answers to their hurt. A few of us in the West are lucky and we may get some kind of justice in this life. Now, from my point of view, I have a problem. But you see, that is where I would like to suggest to you that Christianity is utterly unique, and it doesn't compete with any other religion, because no other religion offers me this. You see, at the heart of Christianity, there is a cross. And what I see there, if that really is God, now try and come with me. If you want to judge Christianity, you have to listen to what it says. If that really is God, what does that tell me? At the very least, it tells me this, that God has not remained distant from human suffering, but has himself become part of it. Now that, to my mind, is profound, and I can see and have seen many times that becoming a window of possibility for people. Now you know that the next claim is that Christ did not remain on the cross. He died and he rose again. Well, that opens up a vast new world for me. It means this, and this is my final thought. We can argue philosophically all night, all year. It's been done for thousands of years. What a good God should, could, must, might, all this kind of thing. And have you ever been satisfied by that argument? No. Why not? Because what we're faced with when all the arguing's finished is a world that's a mixed picture. It's a bit like Coventry Cathedral that was bombed during the war. You go into it, you see that a bomb has hit it, but you also see traces of beauty. Look at life, look at our world. It's beautiful. Keukenhof, phenomenal, which I visited for the first time last year and it blew my mind away. But I see the barbed wire. I see the cancers. I see the tsunamis. So I'm presented in looking at this world with a mixed picture. So how do I face it? Well, I ask this question. I can't solve the philosophical question. And I say, look, is there any evidence anywhere in the universe that there's a God who cares and who I can ultimately trust with the answer? My answer to that is, from personal experience and all that I've said tonight, is that although I can't answer everything, I've learned enough, and I'm speaking very personally now because it is a personal thing. I believe I can trust God with the answer. Atheism has no answer whatsoever. It has no hope to offer. Ultimate hope, it may have temporal hope. And it is utterly no solution, ultimately, to the problem of evil.
As this remarkable discussion comes to a close, John Lennox leaves the audience with a powerful perspective. God's hiddenness is not evidence of his absence. Instead, he argues that God has revealed enough of himself through the universe, human conscience, reason, and ultimately through Jesus Christ, while still allowing people the freedom to choose whether to seek him. Rather than attacking or mocking his opponent, Lennox responds with humility, logic, and compassion, turning a difficult challenge into a thought-provoking conversation about faith, truth, and purpose. But what do you think? Does God's hiddenness make belief difficult? Or is there more evidence of his presence than we often realize? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more inspiring debates and conversations.